Love. How have you been?
Yeah, good, thanks. Yeah, been pretty busy. Yeah, some pretty exciting projects. So yeah, it's all interesting, exciting, all
What's
happening.
been going on?
Yeah, we've launched very exciting business in the Middle East. We're building the team. We're now setting up various showcases.
What's the business?
It's basically saving the planet, Paul. So decarbonising things profitably. Most people associate decarbonisation and sustainability with extra cost. Actually, our focus is to do that profitably without some, so we're looking at some pretty innovative technology. But it's very interesting actually, because a lot of the solar farms, wind farms are just not commercially viable. And while everybody talks about them, it's a great mantra, but actually they're not the
they don't work yeah, exactly.
They're not the most effective way to skin the cat. So
thank you.
Yeah, we've got some very exciting technology. So we're launching a machine that converts methane to graphene and hydrogen. And that's a big deal because methane is 25% worse than carbon dioxide. So to global warming. So yeah, really practical projects.
Right.
Really sort of make it
that's
happen.
Exciting. That's breakthrough.
Yeah,
Avant-garde.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of these.
And not only that, it's sort of like it's cool. It's what everyone wants to talk about at the moment.
Yeah, but it's also very practical as well. I mean, it's sort of there's a lot of bullshit in this space, but actually we're really making it happen. So we're setting up 2 showcases in the space of 2 months, and the business already is genuinely worth a lot of money. We've got investment from the various governments in the Middle East, as well as trade partners. So it's genuinely worth some money. So anyway, it's good. How are you, my friend? Anyway,
well, I'm pretty good. I was sort of like, I saw my father's dead body yesterday, which was kind of fine. I mean, he was a lot darker than that. I was like, why is he so dark? Why did he become a Bangladeshi? Hope that doesn't happen to me. I don't want to be like that in heaven.
Yeah.
But they'd actually just caked on so much makeup because of the bruising. So, that was kind of fine. But then the Reverend Vanessa, who I love dearly, even though she's become a commie, called me up yesterday afternoon and said she's tested positive for COVID, which is particularly bad news because the day before, she'd gone round and seen my mother and me, and I'd given her a lift back in my Uber to Walthamstow. Okay. So I tested yesterday. I tested negative. I've got to go and test my mother after this, which I'm pretty certain she'll turn into the Battle of Thermopylae. But you know what? My attitude towards my mother is I pretend that I'm one of 10 children and that she's phenomenally wealthy and that she hasn't written her will yet.
Right.
So that's the kind of mindset that I try and get myself into when I go around and see her.
Right.
She's very effective, actually. So yeah, I was pretty snarked off about that yesterday, but I spoke with Brother George. I spoke to Pastor Curley this morning, and it is what it is. It's like, to be honest with you, I mean, I love Vanessa to bits, but she's such a COVIDatherian. She's probably jinxed herself into a false positive. So I'm going to ask her to get a second test.
Yeah, I mean, there's a placebo effect and there's the opposite. The opposite can kill you as well. It's like
of course. Yeah, it's called worry.
In fact, most of well, it's actually spiritually the way we feel very much manifests itself, and it's you can will yourself into a state of mind that can become very unhealthy, I think.
Yeah, no, I mean, there was actually a condition they called AIDS, where people who were so paranoid that they were going to catch AIDS actually started manifesting real symptoms of it.
Yeah. I think this actually is a very interesting manifestation of God as well, because I do think I mean, God does say that, you know, pray for what you want and you'll get it. I do think there's an element of that, our ability to will things into reality. I think.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I think this is why the law of attraction is kind of true up to a point.
Yeah.
It's just not completely true.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll have to have a catch up actually. But I was thinking actually meeting up today. Actually, I haven't got a whole lot in my diary. I don't know what you're doing today, but I was thinking about popping into London and having a coffee with you or something.
Oh well, that would be nice, but I just don't feel like doing that today. I've got the funeral on Monday, and I've got to take care of that.
Yeah, sure.
So, yeah.
No
Thank
worries,
you. I mean, I really do want to see you, but just like, I just want to get rid of. Yeah, I mean, my priority's just going to be dealing with. You know what? Because what happened is Victoria said that she would be. She'd try and ruffle up someone else from her end, and she's team rector of 3 other churches. So if she can't deliver someone in a dog collar, she's not the woman I take her for. And then I emailed my new pastor. I spoke to Brother George. He goes, "Why don't you ask your new pastor?" I go, "You know what? That's a good idea. I shall do that." I didn't actually think it was that good an idea, but I thought I'll do it anyway.
Yeah.
Because that's been my biggest lesson: to take suggestions and try and try and sort of like turn off the ego editorial.
Yeah, your camera's gone off, Paul.
Has it?
Yeah. There you are. Yeah, sorted.
Okay.
So yeah, you want to get all that out of the way, don't you? You want the closure on the whole situation, I guess.
Yeah, and I seriously hope that I hope my 86-year-old mother hasn't got COVID, but one of those it is what it is type things.
Yeah.
So yeah. Well, that's good. So when are you back off to Dubai, or are you able to do most of the stuff remotely?
Well, most of the stuff in the UK, I'll have to get out there probably early May, I think. First week, second week in May, probably.
Right.
Got a few things to sort out. We've got a showcase which we're setting up, and got to make sure it's all working. It's my responsibility. The technology is my responsibility, so I need to be there. Yeah. Should be going to see some more concrete. Yeah, they seem to have a simple equation of converting their wealth to concrete.
Yeah. They're still working on the build and they will come premise.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. So we were going to talk about in our series of.
Well, mind you, Pharaoh had that addiction as well. Let's,
yeah.
I suppose if you've got an abundance of slave labor lying around, you may as well, right?
Well, that's probably true, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, which is what they have, really. I mean, they have 70% of the population live in labor camps, and there are about 10% Emiratis. There's quite a few, but the professionals at Brits, Lebanese, and Egyptians, and a lot of Indians. And so if you're at the bottom of that rung, it's not a great place to be. You are going to be building some skyscraper or clearing out some rubbish tip or something.
Yeah. With your hand. No, exactly.
So it's a very biblical type, Pharaoh type society, I suppose, in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. So should we in our series of talking about life, should we you suggested that we talk about death in the sort of human context? I think it's a very interesting subject. It's a good provocative subject. It's one that everybody wants to ignore. It's in the too difficult category, and I think it's probably the ultimate test of our faith. What do you think about what are the things? I mean, it's obviously very close to your heart with recent events. In fact, from my side as well, my mother's father died on Monday morning as well.
Oh right, yeah, condolences.
Well, yeah, actually, I'm not. Yeah. Anyway, so it's a very real thing in life, death. So what do you think, Paul? Do you want to kick off and share your thoughts on,
Yeah, sure. You know, I think it's funny because I was having a chat with Pastor Kirley about this morning. You know, we live in a death-phobic society. I'll say two things. First of all, we live in a death-phobic society. You know, currently in the West, we're not socialized towards death in any way, shape, or form.
No.
Unlike previous societies. I mean, frankly, yesterday I saw my father's body. That's the first time I've been that close to a dead body. I've seen dead bodies from afar, but up close and personal, first time.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm 56 and I've led a pretty fruity life.
Yeah.
You know, by all accounts, there probably should have been a bit more than that, including my own. But anyway,
yeah.
So number one, we live in a death-phobic society. Is a cultural observation. And, you know, a religious observation is that Christianity could be described as death therapy, because death is what gets us to health. You know, we've just been through Easter, which I thoroughly enjoyed. Every year I enjoy Easter more and more because that's the crucible of the whole Christian story.
Yeah.
You know, Christ, and it's the ultimate story.
Yeah.
You can't beat that as a story.
Yeah.
You know, Christ was the hero. He was also the supreme victim. You know, without going into the whole thing, he was completely blameless. He was completely innocent.
Yeah.
He was led to slaughter like a lamb. He was crucified. He suffered horrifically, not just physically, but also spiritually, through substitutionary atonement. He suffered and he bore the weight of our sins. He died, and then he went back to hell and beat death.
Yeah.
And then came back. Okay, mic drop. You know, no one in the history of man will ever come up with a more powerful story than that. It's impossibility.
Yeah.
You beat death. It's like, yeah, okay. And you know, and the reason why it's such a powerful story we can see manifested in why, you know, there's such a powerful Christ narrative in so many of other, you know, so you know, in so many other stories.
Yeah.
So death, you know, and of course, as Christians, what we're supposed to do is to die to ourselves, to die to the flesh. So, you know, keeping this from a personal point of view, in addiction, you know, there's nothing more that I enjoy doing than drinking and taking drugs and the associated activities along with that.
Yeah.
And that's what but I had to die to that. I had to put that behind me. I had to learn to live without those two things. And that was, you know, at the time, that was the most horrific choice that I've ever faced.
Yeah.
And yet by doing so, my life opened up and expanded exponentially in a way that that was beyond my wildest dreams. And I can assure you, I've had some pretty wild dreams.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I suppose that, you know, another model for recovery is that, you know, addiction can be described as immediate gratification, and recovery is delayed gratification.
Yeah.
And in delayed gratification, there's an element of sacrifice.
Yeah.
And sacrifice as a concept it's integral to human development, and not just Christian, because people were sacrificing stuff way before the Christians.
Yeah.
But it was a way to, you know, sacrifice is a way to make a pact with the present so that we can have a better future.
Yeah.
Okay. And you know, the idea of God is, you know, the idea of a better future down the road is not a bad idea, model, metaphor for, you know, for a judging God, because God does judge.
Yeah.
So often death is actually the pathway to life. And, you know, I know this is true because it's counterintuitive.
Yeah.
And on one level, it doesn't make sense. And in actual fact, all spiritual truths are like that. You have to give it away to keep it. You have to surrender to win. So So death should be welcome. But if you look at what's happened with society, it's like that, you know, the whole world's gone crazy in this COVID meltdown, and people have been wandering around with nappies plastered to their faces. It's because, you know, we live in we live in a control, a control focused society. We've all, you know, we can control a lot of, you know, we've actually got a lot more control over our lives now than, you know, peasants in the Middle Ages.
Yeah.
At one level, right, we can control whether we've got cold water, we can control, you know, the temperature of our house, you know, we can control where we live, and, you know, but we think we've got ultimate control, and we don't.
Yeah.
We really, really, really don't.
Yeah, yeah.
But culture likes to foster the idea that we have ultimate control, and advertising likes to sell it.
Yeah.
And we don't. And what happens is that if you take control away, you end up with worry, because that's why people worry. You know, if you look at all the sins, with the exception of envy, there's generally a payoff in a deadly sin, like lust, right? Sex with lots of very attractive people, anger, you get to take out that guy in the office who always irritated you, greed, you know, you're into your third helping a millionaire's top. But what's the payoff of worry? Well, it's the illusion of control. It's the idea that you're in control.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of worrying going on. You know, you talk about sustainability. If you could convert worry into some kind of sustainable fuel, man, you know,
yeah,
you know, the world's energy crisis would be solved. All you'd have to do is tap into my mother, who's like Olympic level at it.
Yeah, yeah.
And so death is the idea that, you know what, you can't control things. You don't know best.
Yeah.
And you're not in control. You know, I'm going to wrap up by saying this. One of the problems with society today is that male initiation has just disappeared. And if you look at initiation rites from sort of like, you know, what the Celts did to the Aborigines in Australia, they pretty much all corresponded along the same lines. Like, you know, the boy would be taken away from the mother. The women would start wailing and kick up a huge fuss. The boy would be cast into a circle of men who'd sort of like give him a drink, slap him around, and then give him a stick and tell him to wander off into the forest.
Yeah.
You know, he'd come back 2 weeks later, half dead, starved, almost got himself eaten alive, and they'd cut the end of his dick off.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you know, what does that teach you? Well, what it teaches you is that you're going to die.
Yeah.
You're not in control. Your life is not your own. You're not the most important person. You know, you're not the most important person on the planet.
Yeah, no, I think it's bang on. Yeah, yeah.
And we don't have that lesson anymore. You know, the 12 steps goes some way towards sort of ticking some of those boxes.
Yeah.
But not necessarily all of them. And that's it. You know, we live in a cult of self-actualization. We live in a cult of self-authority.
Yeah.
You know, I am the boss of me, and it's like, you're not. God is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he proves it through death, literal or metaphorical. So that's me.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. That's very, very interesting, Paul. Thank you. I think I think you're absolutely right. I think there's a degree of comfort practically that's manifested itself over the last 40 or 50 years, which coincidentally has coincided with trashing the planet and excessive consumption. You know, this fallacy that's taught on MBA programs that business is about domination and endless growth, rather than necessarily appreciating what you've got. Your video's got off, Paul. It's difficult talking to nobody. So yeah, I think that has been shattered actually, I think, with COVID. So I think there has been a realization or an inkling into the fallibility of human beings, and a bit like your male initiation thing. I think that's given people some insight into their complete lack of control. And then you add on top of that, actually the consequences of trashing the planet and excessive consumption, which is manifesting itself around the world with real poverty. I mean, desperate poverty, with increasing prices of things, which is putting people in an impossible position. So I think, there's been a delusionary, on Earth, there's been a delusionary story which people have believed and actually to a degree lived. But actually it's a weird kind of hell, because if you ask anybody who's living that story, is there something missing? Without any doubt, they'd say there's something missing. They're not sure what it was as a non-Christian, but there's something missing. I think as well, part of that story is alcohol. Part of that story, alcohol is an incredibly effective drug. The only problem with it is you have to carry on drinking to stay on the crest of the wave. But I think the ultimate test of anybody's faith is that there is life after death, because Paul said, if there's no life after death, you may as well do as much damage as you possibly can. And I think it does full circle to this self-righteousness thing, Paul, that we've discussed quite a bit, that somehow that, as you said, some of the statements that what my sister might say, well, I'm doing the best I can, therefore I'm quite likely to go to heaven, let's say, or whatever, and can't do any better. And if you say you can't do any better, that's actually the worst possible statement in terms of creating.
Yeah, or I'm okay as I am.
Yeah, exactly. Those sorts of statements, which are some of the worst statements in terms of creating stasis. So, and the other weird thing as well, which I think actually is manifesting itself in people who really are seriously powerful, like Musk, like Bezos, is they're developing this dream of being able to live forever. And weirdly enough, some of the CRISPR technology is actually almost getting there to prevent aging, which is another really disturbing way of living some sort of hell really on Earth, and extending the hell on Earth. So I think it's really about, one would hope, discovering our purpose on Earth somehow, and I don't think it's through difficulty, and I think it's then, and the big problem I think is that life on Earth is very short, in comparison to an eternal life. So if you're not using your time wisely now, which is the preparation and the path to, frankly, heaven or hell, then you are in a very dark place. And there's a real, for me, this has been one of the drivers I call of an absolute imperative to bring people to Christ, because it is such a crisis. To think that people can go through life thinking they have control, thinking that they're doing the best they can, etc., etc., because the consequences of that are so dramatic and so eternally damning that, and I think this is actually the crux of why Jesus said, the pride are an abomination, because unless people realize their fallibility, they will not improve, they will not move forwards, and it's an absolute crisis. So I my primary objective, although I lose sight of it from time to time, is on Earth is to bring people to Christ, because the consequences of them living a life which with such dire consequences after death is just unthinkable. And I think the other thing is that God, I think the other delusion from Christians, but I think a lot of so-called Christians are probably not Christians, but who knows? And I think the other delusion is that somehow God is good and kind, which of course he is, but the flip side, it's terrifyingly good, because he simply cannot do anything bad, so there's no room for error. So frankly, if you are not a Christian, there's no way of coming to God without Jesus. So hence the your Easter story, which you beautifully described. So I think we're living in a very real sense of crisis to bring people to Christ in this utter mire. And I think actually the time is quite good because people are, if you're self-righteous, if you think you've got control, then, really? I think
Yeah, no, really. And you know what? Even Elon Musk, he's like, he doesn't shortchange himself. He doesn't say that, he's not a stupid guy, but he doesn't profess to have all the answers, and he never even professes to be that happy.
Yeah.
There is actually a humility to him.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think Bezos is a different type of creature.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. I think there is a
Bezos is like Mr. Burns Jr. You can see him growing into. He is right. You can actually see him growing into Mr. Burns. Release the hounds.
Yeah. So and the other thing I think is probably role models. I mean, which interesting Christians are on this earth doing, being people that other people want to be? Because, I'm not saying that, where is the role model for this? I mean, you've got some rather abstract sort of Christian preachers, some of whom are quite good, some of whom are quite religious. But it's like, where exactly is the role model for this whole thing? And where's the example? I mean, a lot of churches. I mean, Hillsong. I'm a member of Hillsong. Has utterly gone to
right. Okay.
And I think that's actually quite reassuring. I think because they're all feeling very awkward. They cancelled the conference, but actually no, you are human as well. You are just as fallible as anybody else. And actually, I think there's something quite reassuring about that. And actually, it's something quite appealing about it. That even the chief pastor that started a mega church globally has fallen. And actually, that's quite reassuring in my view.
Are you talking about Brian Houston or the other guy?
Yeah. I'm talking about him, and I think it's quite reassuring, weirdly enough. And in the services, they've all been very shocked and how awful. But how bloody self-righteous? Who the hell do they think they are in the congregation to think they're any different? Have they started a mega church?
Well, yeah, exactly. Like congregation full of sinners. Yeah, absolutely.
It's just so the whole dynamic of that is so, and actually that's the perspective of ourselves, because it's this realization that, frankly, it's like the winning thinking program. What does good look like? It is that we're all a bunch of fools and we're utterly reliant on each other. And it breaks up this notion that I know better and nobody else is doing anything else. It's all me, all that rubbish that's going on in our heads. We are utterly reliant on each other. We are utterly reliant on God. We have no control over circumstances. All that happens is things happen to us, and the challenge is how do we respond to that? Have anything else is just delusion. And you can see that all over the world. It's reality. You open your eyes anywhere. But I think there is in some societies where there's a lot of wealth. Frankly, I think people are very distant from that, and I think probably goes back to the Bible as well, that Jesus said there's more chance of the wealthy coming to Christ than going through the eye of the needle, or whatever was said. So I think that's
the wealth have access to more control.
What was that? Sorry.
The wealth have access to more control, so they can feed that illusion.
Yeah, exactly. Which is what, of course, we're taught. You go to school, that's what you're taught for. You go to MBA program. It's not about anything apart from making money and growing and trashing the planet. That's what it's about. To feed that illusion that you have control. I thank God for your crisis. I thank God for my crisis in my life, or crises. To realize that actually it's not all about us. It's such a bloody relief, because it just doesn't work. So I think it's you've got to love a good crisis, I think.
Well, yeah, exactly. First line of the book of James: rejoice when you have trials and tribulations. True. Yeah. It's difficult, but it's true. I mean, I understand that at an intellectual level. I mean, I really do. And so that's kind of what I think. I mean, I wish it was what I felt, but at least it's what I think.
Yeah, it's what I feel. It is actually what I felt. And I think, I mean, both in my business, as a turnaround individual, who specializes in that, which incidentally I couldn't do without grace and love, right? I couldn't operate in those circumstances. I have witnessed some terrible things. And again, I thank God for that, because it's brought me closer to realize how do you resolve these things, and you can't do it without grace and love. when I spoke on the MBA program, alumni to Cranfield, I talked about grace and love. That has been the two things without which you can't turn a business around. You cannot forget. Otherwise, what happens is your inability to forgive overwhelms you, and you just cannot move forwards. The past holds you back, and so from a very practical perspective, it's very important. But the other thing, I think, just go back to your point, why do I think I welcome a crisis, and why does that manifest itself? I think it comes down to, in those crises, who do you turn to, Paul? Because I think it's a habit. In a crisis, if someone dies, let's say, who do you turn to? Do you turn to yourself, or do you turn to God? If you turn to yourself, you're in a weird sort of, even Christians can be in a weird sort of habitual hell, that they are still sort of relying on themselves, calling themselves Christians, without really turning to God and learning from it. And there's a wonderful testimony, actually, of a woman who lost a baby, who had been trying with IVF for donkey's years on our church, lost a baby. She turned to Christ, and she said, and Jesus didn't say, oh, I wish that hadn't happened. He said something. God spoke to her and said, I know how you feel, because I lost my son.
Yeah.
So it's not that God wishes an easy life for us. It's just, who do we turn to when we're in difficulty?
Yeah. And he allows things to happen, and he disciplines the ones he loves.
Yeah. So, that whole thing, I think, is part of being able to cope with things, being able to cope with death. But I think death is, as a category, Paul, is the ultimate challenge for our faith, for anybody's faith. To believe the story of Easter is such a ridiculous thing. I think that, funny enough as well, Paul said, live your life as you wish if you don't believe in life after death. Actually, I don't think anybody would want to create too much havoc on earth, because that really doesn't work either. So now, whilst he said that, it obviously it wasn't tongue in cheek, but it's probably not too far from the truth. But it is the crux of real sense of urgency to bring people to Christ, frankly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, I think this is the ultimate power of Christians, which is we're taught not to fear death, and that's what makes us so dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. It's very true. Yeah.
So
yeah, and the Nehemiah story, the fifth in the fire, or the fourth in the fire. I love that analogy. That analogy, when it comes out the fire untouched, and there's somebody else in the fire. That is just the most incredible story to me.
Absolutely. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Listen, my phone's blowing up. It's something I need to deal with, related to my father. So this has been great, and we'll catch up next week.
Yeah, let's do that, Paul. Take care, my friend. Good luck.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.